are back this week with another episode of Grief Uncensored, episode 5. Last week we took a little break for our mental health. It was a hard week, and honestly just sitting down to record these episodes every week is really hard, as you can imagine it being, but it really does take a toll just because you have to sit here and think about all these things that, you know, not a lot of people want to sit and confront all the time. But yeah, we like to do that because it helps us and helps the community, it helps you guys, and that's why we're here and we're back this week.
Definitely a much needed break, but we were talking and on the break we were like, you know, we've needed this because now we're actually looking forward to next week when we record instead of like kind of dreading it in a way or trying to like avoid thinking about it. Because it does take a lot of planning because we can't just like go out and like, you know, say whatever comes to the head, and it has to be
even though the first
organized. No, the first one, that wasn't exactly.
The first one was a free ball. We really just winged it. But everything else after that, we sit and plan these episodes, and we want to make it as good as possible, you know, and as coherent as possible. So that requires a lot of brain work, a lot of teamwork. And just a lot of effort. So thank you for being patient with us, and we're really happy to be back this week.
And then this week we're talking about anxiety.
Grief-induced anxiety. And triggers.
Yes.
Woo.
So I was dreading this topic because I struggle so hard with anxiety. Like, I talked about it a little bit before, but I have a definite anxiety disorder, and I even had it before all of this trauma happened to me. So it just got worse, and
I can relate to that.
You know, and it's like different aspects of new types of anxiety now. So we're going to talk about all of them, and if we miss any, definitely write in because we're sharing solely from, you know, what kind of we hear and also what we experience with our different experiences that we have with grief. But the thing about anxiety is that when a death happens or when a big change happens in your life, all of a sudden it just brings this chaos and fear to your life. And when things kind of come out of nowhere, or even if they're prolonged, it's like a big change or a big loss, it feels like we're not in control, and it feels like we're not safe.
That's a huge thing.
And you know, if you're feeling like you're not in control of your life or what happens to you or other people, or if you don't feel safe, you know, with COVID or with illnesses or with driving on the highway, you know, it could be anything, but if you're not feeling safe and in control, your anxiety can just spiral and heighten.
Because you're like, what can I do to prevent this? And then you kind of think that there really isn't anything you could do, and that's a scary thought for sure.
Yeah, it is one of those world questions.
It's a spiraling.
Human existence questions where you're like, what can I control in this life? And it's a hard one. But for me personally, like, I think people would try and say, oh, like, you know, don't kind of catastrophize your thoughts, and you know, just because one bad thing happened doesn't mean another thing, or like lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice, blah blah blah.
Right.
But like all of those like rationalizations don't matter to me, or I don't even hear them as, you know, helpful, because I'm just thinking you think that those things sound irrational, don't you? But to me they're not, because that was a reality that set in the moment I got the phone call when my mom passed away in a car accident. All those crazy things that you think, you know, don't happen to you or
will never happen.
And they do in your life. So you can't bargain with, oh, that's an irrational thought or a catastrophizing thought. And that's like the hard part of anxiety. You can't like talk yourself out of having that feeling. So telling yourself you're dramatic or irrational just doesn't
yourself.
Work. And other people too will be like, no, like that's not gonna happen, like, you know.
Also, that kind of goes hand in hand when people are depressed and people who aren't depressed go up to them and they're like, just be happy, bro. Like, oh I haven't tried that before.
It comes down to like you can't talk yourself out of being sad or like being anxious.
So, something really interesting that Claire Bidwell Smith said, she's a therapist, and she also wrote this book called Anxiety, The Missing Stage of Grief. She says the funny thing about grief is that no one ever feels like they're doing it the right way. But the truth is that there is no right way, and the only wrong way is to not do it. And she also states that about 70% of her clients have gone into the hospital for a panic attack after following a big loss. So it is a really, really common thing to have anxiety following a loss, such as, as a part of the grieving process too. And
So common.
yeah. And there was this thing that says if your anxiety symptoms don't dissipate after 6 months after the loss, you may be experiencing a complicated grief or anxiety disorder.
Yeah, so I literally, before this episode, I was just wanted to see what came up on Google, and I was like, all right, let me just put grief and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the second thing that popped up, what you just read. It was that, if your anxiety symptoms do not dissipate after 6 months, you may be experiencing grief or complicated anxiety disorder.
6 months is a
and I'm
tight deadline.
You're putting a fucking timeline on this shit. Okay, after 6 months, it's a 6 months anniversary. Okay, no more being anxious. That is just some bullshit. Okay, and the fact that was one of the first things that comes up is annoying as fuck.
Yeah. But the first thing that came
the actual first thing that came up was literally SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Okay, so this shit is real, you guys. The fact that that's the first thing that comes up when you Google grief and anxiety.
And it's like a hotline.
It's literally a hotline. It's literally like an administration.
Yeah, it's a national helpline for people.
And okay, that's great that, we have some health and human services, but I'm like, damn, this is so unspoken about. I'm like, what? This is literally anxiety, grief-induced anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that comes up. That's really important. And I feel like I haven't never heard. I feel like I don't hear a lot about it. I feel like I should hear more about it.
People don't understand that grief is very complicated and the set of emotions you feel and what you experience, both physically and mentally. And anxiety is such a huge part of that. And there are a lot of triggers we'll get into at the end too that trigger these anxieties even more. But also the anxiety about just general things. We're about to start talking about some of them. And the first one I'll mention is when you first find out about this loss, the anxiety of the anxiety comes from how you found out or how you received news of this information. Mm-hmm. For me, the anxiety came from literally being at the airport. My mom's just approached me, and so if my mom said to me I have to tell you something, that would really induce a panic in me because it's very traumatizing. It's very triggering, And I'm sure for my sister, receiving a phone call from me or from someone can induce that anxiety too. I'm sure the phone call.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I mean, I think now when I get a phone call, I'm not panicking, but if somebody texts me saying oh, you need to call me, or if somebody says to me oh, I have to tell you something, or I'm like, oh my god, who?
Yeah,
it's almost like my body's just waiting for it to happen again to me, and that is so hard to carry.
Yeah. Also, that goes into anxiety of who's gonna die next, or having a constant fear of losing someone else.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually gonna be my number one thing. Is you're just okay, when you're almost okay, so when's this gonna happen again? How am I gonna be able to
live through this
again? And
that's
you're just
it's a lot, yeah. And I don't even know I don't have any answers. All I can say is that literally me and my grandma were talking on the phone today, and my first thought after I hung up is she's really old, and I don't know when I'm gonna lose her, and the thought of losing her is just really horrifying, and I can't.
Yeah.
I just
exactly. It's easy to wonder who you're gonna lose next, because you're just this has been so prominent in your life, and this just shattered your world, and then you kind of have this realization that death happens,
Yeah.
And then you're just scared as fuck for the next person you might lose.
Right. And when that's gonna happen, if you're can you ever be ready for that,
No. But that's the thing, that's life. I literally think every single person in the world can griefs. Everyone relates to that. That's like one string that we have through all of us. Like
love and loss.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Just a long thought.
Another one is when you say goodbye to someone thinking that could be the last time, or not knowing if it's going to be the last time.
I struggle with that really bad. Like, I would just be saying goodbye to somebody leaving my house, and I'm like, starting with these catastrophizing thoughts again, like, oh, this is going to be the last time I see them, like, oh, they're going to get in an accident on their way home, like, you know, if whatever, they're going for a bike ride, and they're like, oh my god, they're gonna get in an accident and die, like, it's literally catastrophizing thoughts that you cannot control, because it may sound crazy to somebody else, but to you, that actually happened to you.
Yeah. For me, my anxiety comes from, like, not cherishing that moment enough. Or, like, that last a goodbye, or, like, spending time with that person, because for me, I didn't know, we both didn't know, but, like, we both didn't know that was going to be the last time, and then my thoughts are, wow, like, I wish I, like, you know, just, like, did a little more with that moment, I guess, but, you know, you never really fucking know, so, I don't know, just cherish every moment, I guess, is the only answer to that one.
Another big thing is, like, with COVID, I think people are, first of all, the amount of COVID deaths, I mean, just brought in so much grief into the world that was not there previously. Well, of course there was grief there previously, but, you know, the surge.
Just for tremendous, in such a short amount of time.
Right.
And then also the whole pandemic induces anxiety.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Especially in March 2020 when it first happened, like, it was like a whole lockdown. Everybody was fucking scared. Everybody was inside fucking sanitizing their groceries, fucking 6 feet apart, like, deathly afraid of human contact. Like, you know, that's a fucking anxiety in itself. And then fear of getting sick, and then fear of getting other people sick. And this could be so much worse, especially if you know someone that has passed because of COVID, you know, and, like, it is truly, like, real. And it's just kind of also, it can be triggering to see other people, like, take it so lightly when it really impacted your life in such a way.
Exactly.
You know?
And, like, if you had lost a parent or someone really close to you from COVID, and then you see other people not giving a shit about COVID, that probably brings on some immense anger.
Yeah.
But also anxiety about getting COVID, or somebody else getting COVID, and it being, you know, something that's potentially could end their life. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one.
Also, that kind of bridges, like, the hypochondriac.
I was literally gonna get into that next. Is the hypochondriac for me, especially because my dad passed from cancer. So, I mean, like I mentioned in the first episode, I always had a fear of cancer, but since my dad passed from cancer and my grandpa, like, the hypochondriac tendencies is really bad for me now. Like, I am constantly, just thinking I have something, I'm WebMDing, diagnosing myself. Like, it is that's not okay, you know? And I think for me, the best, or just for people who are hypochondriacs, the best thing that you can do is, one, go see a therapist and see what they can say about it. And two, if you don't have money to go to a therapist, at least go to a doctor, get yourself checked out. It will reduce a little bit of anxiety in the moment, even if, for me, the hypochondriac tendencies are so bad, like, I'm like, I don't believe you to the doctors.
No, health anxiety is, like, a really big, like, aspect of anxiety. Like, people can have specifically health anxiety where it just surrounds.
Yeah,
like,
and you're
your health,
constantly,
like,
on your mind.
You feel like you can't work out because your heartbeat is too fast, you're gonna have a heart attack, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's a really, really big thing. Health anxiety is, like, a specific type of anxiety.
Absolutely.
It's really big.
Yeah, and for a period of time, I was going to the doctor, like, once a month to just, like, get checked up, get blood work, and, like, make sure everything was okay. And I'm, like, yeah, it really helped me in that time, because I'm, like, freaking out. Like, I'm like, oh my god, like, am I okay? Like, I don't know. So it does help a little bit to go, but ultimately you do need to, like, see a therapist and talk about it, because I think that as many times as you can go to see a doctor, they're just, you know, it's not going to help when you don't get to the root of the issue, when it's anxiety, not your actual body. You know what I mean?
And then what about, like, when maybe you're genetically predisposed.
Oh yeah, and that's a completely reasonable fear to have if this kind of illness that is like hereditary or runs in the family, you know? So I think it's so important if you do have these anxieties or like thoughts to go to the fucking doctor, because the biggest fear is like going to the doctor and getting diagnosed with it, but it's so much better to be preventative. And then also if you do, God forbid, have it or have an illness, to catch it early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, getting checked, I mean, I suppose that's really the only way that you can
A little
not
bit.
have anxiety about it, but you want to have anxiety about it anyway. But if you do have that, like, you're valid, and I'm also really, really sorry that you have to have that on your shoulders all the time.
Yeah, it's always on the shoulders for sure. But yeah, the reason why I was like, oh, all of these are valid is because I don't think that any of these are coming from like an irrational place, because there's a reason why you have these anxieties. Some of them might be a little bit more like far-fetched and like a little bit more like, all right, we don't have to think about that right now, but you know.
But they're all valid.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all valid because it literally comes from like basically something that you had seen happen or that you experienced or your family member experienced, and it's like your trauma. It's like a really big
It's a trauma response.
So yeah, it is a trauma response.
Yeah, so I mean, those are just some of the anxieties that we've experienced because of it. Do you have any others that you can think of right now?
No. Honestly, my biggest one is really just fear of who I'm going to lose next. And I'm just like always having anxiety about somebody else getting hurt, somebody else being in an accident, like doing crazy things. Like, I don't know, I'm just less carefree about things. Like whether we're like jumping off a cliff into the water, or like I'm like, oh, someone's going to die. And I don't know, riding a bike, like just doing normal San Diego stuff. Cause you know what I'm saying? But no, like just normal things.
Just doing like risk-taking things.
Yeah, risk-taking things. I'm like way less. I'm just more scared of that kind of stuff now, which I hate. I really don't like that, and I think it's like annoying because I want to be like fearless, but it's really hard to do that. But a lot also like anxiety around driving. Like for me, like I'm pretty sure my whole family hates driving now, and like driving for me was like kind of a safe space. Like it was. Like, I never hated it. I actually always loved driving. And now, like, I'd just rather not drive, and I don't really like when other people drive, and I don't really like being, you know, in the care of someone else.
Yeah.
And, like, that definitely gives me a lot of anxiety. And, like, I can still drive without, like, having a panic attack, but, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of moving towards the PTSD part now.
Which is also a part of anxiety,
too. Which is. But all of those things are valid, like, depending on your circumstance, like, there's going to be, like, numerous amounts of things that you could have anxiety about.
For sure. Yeah, so, I mean, there's really no answer on, there's no right way on how to deal with these anxieties, I guess. The obvious ones would be to, one, seek medical help by going to see a therapist. I know that that's not really an affordable answer for a lot of people. Like, some people really just can't afford to get a therapist, right, or anything.
Yeah.
They don't have health care. So that is, like, the easiest thing to say to do, but it's really...
It is the easiest thing to say to do. Therapy is an option, you know, under the right circumstances, especially with health care and, you know, affordability. But... therapy aside, there are a few other things that I see a lot of people recommend that I also do, and it's really just steps to kind of make yourself feel grounded and just kind of stay in your day and like in the moment and kind of help with your catastrophizing thoughts.
Right.
And those things are like a really good morning routine. So like for me, I will do like a little yoga video. I follow this one breath work, like morning breath work routine, the same YouTube video every morning. And then I also have like my own written like positive affirmations, and they're very specific to me because I wrote them like depending on how I was feeling. And I literally would just sit in front of the mirror and read them, and they change like, you know, with the time, but overall like those things help me get grounded in the beginning of the day so that I can try and carry that in for the rest of the day. So that's not to say that I'm like perfect and do that all the time.
No, but that sounds really good, and I feel like that's like well on the way to, I mean, that's like a really good way to start your day off right. When sometimes your day starts bad, the rest of the day, it sets a tone for the rest of the day.
Totally. Your mornings are so sacred and important.
Right.
And if you can like start the day like that, I think it will be really good for like just as a routine to have that. But, you know, of course I don't do that. I mean, I try to do it every day, but of course, like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's literally just when you can fit it in and, you know.
For sure. For me, it's definitely music that I use to like stay grounded. So whether that's listening to music or playing my bass, like I do that so that it keeps me in the moment, you know, and I'm like focusing on this, you know, instrument or like practicing and stuff. So that keeps my mind like in the present of what I'm doing versus like, you know, all these random thoughts that could be appearing.
Your creative outlet, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and also, or like you could do other things like journaling or like drawing, painting, if you have like a special interest that you
just
like
taking
to do.
Time that's not like watching TV or doing your work.
Dissociating.
You know? Yeah. For some people it could be cleaning too, like you just listen to music.
Oh, cleaning is huge for me.
Yeah.
For us.
You know, just anything that kind of just lets your mind pass these thoughts. Like, like meditation, for example. Like, meditation, people are like, oh, I can't sit still and just not thinking for that long. But really, meditation is just letting these thoughts pass through your brain and recognize them and then letting them go. And they're going to keep coming and keep coming, you know. But just sitting with them and recognizing them, you know, these thoughts come up because they want to be heard, but then they don't have to be like taken to heart. So you could do that like whether you're sitting and literally meditating, you know, in the what's it called, traditional sense, but also just cleaning or painting and music too. So those things just kind of soothe your brain a little bit.
Absolutely.
But my therapist actually told me this, which I'm going to read now, which is TIPP, TIPS, and it stands for temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and paired muscle relaxation. Okay, so basically what those are just like 4 different pillars of things that can kind of help you jump out of like a really bad mental kind of like a panic attack or like an anxiety attack. I think these things are also used for like self-harm or just these really thoughts that are daunting your whole present. And if you're in that situation and you're in that mindset, you can do one of these things. So like temperature refers to like you can splash your face with ice and like cold shower, like those types of things. Intense exercise, obviously that speaks for itself. I don't know, I feel like that's less interesting to me. But I also do work out, so like I think that that's also a good thing. Actually,
and intense on your own standard. You know, it doesn't have to
but
be.
Also, working out and having a good gym routine that's also helped me a lot. It does release a lot of just like built up energy that you have, like your anxious energy. It is energy and it has to kind of go somewhere. And if you like release it and you're so damn tired, like you're not having racing thoughts at night. Paced breathing, like I said, if you just literally YouTube like breath work routine, like for anxiety, there's so much stuff in it.
Just focusing on your breath too.
And paired muscle relaxation is relaxation. I'm so dumb.
Relaxation. Did you say relaxation?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? That's just like...
Okay, I'm pretty sure paired muscle relaxation. Paired muscle relaxation. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's when you like squeeze all your muscles in your body and then you like hold it for like 10 seconds and then you just like release all of it.
Ooh, yeah.
So like if you do that, it basically you releases all that like kind of tension that you have. And if you repeat it and then it helps your mind and body relax. So I think that can also be paired with your breath work too. So
for sure. Also, just doing anything that you love to do personally that you you know, don't have time for, or just make time for it, and it'll make you feel so much better.
Yeah, it's like one thing for your mind, one thing for your body, one thing for your soul, etc.
Right, exactly.
It's like self-care, except not face masks and, like, you know, painting your nails or whatever it is. I don't know. It's like stuff that really feeds your... Yeah, of course. I mean, I literally take a hot bath every single night and do, like, face masks, but I'm talking, like, that
fuel your soul.
Mental, like, and, like your soul, feeding your soul.
Like
soul care.
Soul care, soul care.
You have to, like, soothe yourself in a way. Like, you need to find these techniques that soothe your anxiety.
The healthy soothing.
You know?
Yeah, definitely taking time to, like, do things that you love will make you happy for sure. Or not, and that's not to say it's going to make you happy permanently, but it will bring a little bit of life back into your life. Yeah. All right. So, following the anxiety that we just discussed, we're going to be talking about some triggers. Some triggers that trigger this anxiety, or just triggers in general that make us feel
you can just be living your life.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden this happens and you're like,
oh, yeah. It's like a trigger where you're like, okay, I'm finally in this moment where I'm like not thinking about my dead parent, and then I'm like, oh, I'm triggered by something, and now I'm like, okay, let me go cry in the bathroom really quick, you know?
Oh,
that's the kind of triggers we're talking about.
Exactly.
You're getting triggered, and it triggers your anxiety, but it really just triggers all these emotions that you've been dealing with since the loss, or since, you know, around the time of the loss. So.
And we talked more about, like, the verbal things that people say that trigger us in the other episode, but this week we're going to talk about more, like, physical things that just happen in our life that we, like, just encounter all the time that you know, just can't avoid sometimes.
Yeah. A lot of these things are unavoidable, and we recognize that, and, like, you can't, you know, death is such a prominent thing, and I always say this, I feel like I've said it in every single episode, but, like, of course there's going to be TV shows about death and the afterlife, and, like, it's going to trigger the fuck out of me because I'm never going to watch Interstellar again because I just can't think that much about human existence without spiraling.
Right.
But it is what it is. Like, that's the theme of life, is literally love and loss, and that's going to be forever. Yeah. It's something that's, like, really... you know, a soft spot in my heart, so...
It is.
It's like, it's a trigger, and I'm never going to be able to get away from it.
Yeah, so...
But shows like Euphoria...
Oh my god.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, Euphoria is just a big one, because everybody's fucking talking about it, season 2 right now, and season 1, it was pre-lost for me, so I was like, oh damn, that's really sad, but I didn't, you know, it wasn't like a trigger. Now, season 2, it's like, she's talking a lot about losing her dad, and you like remember like the whole reason why she's a drug addict is because she lost her fucking dad.
Isn't that damaging? It's like, I became a drug addict because I lost my dad. I'm like, damn.
And spoiler alert, there was this whole scene, I don't know what episode, but there was this fucking scene where she like so high that she fucking was like hugging her dad, and it was like ultimately the show was like basically like she's so high she gets to be in a place where she's like transcending Earth, and she's like in this dimension where she can like reunite with her dad. And it was just like super triggering to see. That is like really hard to see as someone who's like lost someone, and I'm sure it's triggering to see as someone who's struggled, has like addiction problems.
Overall, Euphoria is like triggering every single
like
ever have anything
a lot of triggering topics in there.
I mean, I can't even believe like it's so popular.
It is
like people are.
It is.
It's
like a lot of people are watching it not lightly, but they're, you know, it's just like kind of like a trending topic. It's like kind of like joked about, but it is a show that talks about very, very heavy fucking shit, and that is triggering in itself, you know?
You know, it makes for good content, but at the same time, like, it is really hard to watch for people who have personal experiences with those types of issues. Yeah,
for sure.
But even like Interstellar, like even some Disney movies, like
all Disney movies.
Yeah, I mean
they're cute, but they're always like
they always have this theme. You know, you cry at certain movies, and then you're like, oh, because you know pulled at the heartstrings. But after a loss, those things hit so differently, so much harder. Like, God. I will spiral and be upset and sad for the rest of the night. Soul, don't even get me started on Soul. oh my god, like,
So,
they were, I don't even know, like, it came out, like, I swear, it came
was
out, like,
talking
a couple weeks or something after, I mean, I might be wrong, but,
yeah.
I remember, like, somebody was like, oh, we should watch it, and then, like, my school was, like, playing it, and for, like, a movie night, and I was like, oh, you know what, let me just watch, no, absolutely not, literally, and this was only a couple months after the loss for me, oh my god, bro, 2 minutes in, I was literally like, I cannot watch this right now. It's gonna send me spiraling. I mean, thinking about
and
where your
like
parent is,
yeah.
or anything about the afterlife, or how we can like still reach them, is just so freaking triggering.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sent into this place where I'm like, oh, where is my mom, and can she talk to me, and is she watching me? Like, no, I can't think about that all the time.
Mm-hmm. So many Disney movies have the protagonist as like mom or dad died, and then they'll like become like this crazy savior, like fucking Lion King, Inside Out. Actually, no, it doesn't happen in Inside Out. But Inside Out is one of those movies where they talk a lot about emotions. They talk about core memories, and I'm just like thinking about fucking core memories that I have that involve my dad, and I'm just like. Like, it's just... And then she has a family in there. I guess it's just, like, the fact that she has both her parents.
And Inside Out, I watched that before the loss, and I remember I was, like, crying, and it was, like, I was thinking about it for days. So, like, literally something after that would just be...
Yeah. Ooh, I just watched Shang-Chi, I think that's how you say it. I hope I didn't butcher the name. I think that's how you say it. Mm-hmm. But I just watched that, and basically, like, his fucking mom dies, and then his dad's, like, this evil person that he has to defeat, whatever. But his mom dies, and then that's, like, a whole central theme in this is, like, oh, remember what you always have a piece of her with you. And it's just, like... It is really triggering.
Yeah.
It is.
And it feels like sometimes you're not safe. Like, we're literally just watching, like, New Girl, and then, of course, you're just trying to, like, dissociate with New Girl, and then no.
And then it's, like, the episode where Nick Miller's dad dies, and then the next episode is, like, a funeral scene.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching How I Met Your Mother, and Marshall's dad dies. Like, it's just everywhere.
You cannot get away.
I know. Yeah, and I get why they do it. Like we said, it's just a huge part of life is love and loss. Yeah. And actually in Euphoria, Rue was saying, like, I think it was Rue and Dominic Fike's character, I don't know his name, Elliot, and they were just like, what's a bigger feeling than loss? And Rue said loss. Oh, what's a bigger feeling than love? And Rue said loss.
Everyone keeps posting that, and I'm like, oh, what? Bro, can y'all stop posting that?
Yeah, that's a triggering scene.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god, everyone was posting that on my For You page, and I was like, I don't need to be seeing this every 5 minutes, you guys. Please, I'm literally gonna cry.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't funny. Like, I'm actually triggered by it.
No.
Like, I'm laughing right now, but it's actually like...
No, like, it was painful to see.
It's painful.
And you're just constantly reminded at every turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also, you know what? My roommate and I were watching something, and she knows when things are gonna be triggering, or like she's like, if we're watching a movie that she's already seen, she'll be like, trigger warning, like something really bad's gonna happen, which I really appreciate because I'm like, fuck, thank you, because I'll just like walk out in that
even
scene
like
or whatever.
Christmas movies, we were watching a Christmas movie, a couple months ago during Christmas, and there was like a car accident in it, and like literally both the parents died, and I'm like, who put on this movie?
Like
fucking put on this movie.
Like what the fuck?
And it was just like, you're just trying to chill on Christmas, and then this kind of stuff happens. But in a lot of movies, they set the plot with like car accidents and like cancer. Like, it's like popular.
Yeah, like the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just such a common thing in real life. So of course, they do it in movies too. But it's hard because you just want to enjoy a movie, and then you're like constantly triggered. So that's really difficult.
Yeah. And I guess that leads into the next one, which is like, for you, any conversations involving car accidents or any news about that?
Yeah. Like, there was just some things that happened where, people I knew got into a bad car accident, and, everyone was like, thank God everyone's okay, we're something. And I'm like, yeah, thank God you guys are okay. Like, it doesn't always fucking turn out that way. Yeah. And it really hurts. It really hurts because,
because you're like, why did that have to
exactly. Yeah. And even when they're not really bad car accidents, even when they're just like smaller car accidents, and really when anyone brings it up, I'm just kind of like looking away and trying to avoid that conversation, because I'm just like, I really don't want to talk about anything related to that. And that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, that's for me is cancer. Like, I don't want to hear about it. I hate hearing about people getting diagnosed with it. It's obviously all over. It's like one of the biggest leading causes of death is cancer. And like, I know recently Virgil Abloh passed from cancer. That was like really heartbreaking on two different dimensions for me, just because he was obviously like an amazing, iconic designer, and also just because I lost my dad to cancer too. So it was just like really painful to like mourn another cancer loss and just be like, damn, cancer took another like great person out, you know? And then also, yeah, just any cancer diagnosis, whether it's in like a show, movie, fucking in real life, obviously it's worse, but yeah, it's just a lot.
Yeah. And also, like, there's a lot of commercials and, like, ads based on these types of things. Like, there's this truck that drives around San Diego. And
everywhere. It's goddamn everywhere.
The Accident King.
Yeah.
And his fucking face is everywhere on every damn billboard. There's
3333333 is his number.
His phone number is literally, and I look at it and I'm like, fucking like, there's an accident lawyer.
It's literally at every corner.
I see these all the time. I'm just like, yeah, like after what me and my family's had to deal with, like this past year, having to loop this freaking trauma, you know, every single day. It's literally just on repeat every single day because of, you know, all the legalities and seeing some ads about, you know, we can help you after your car accident. Yeah, like, you know, I'm the accident king. Get you what you deserve. I'm just like, these things are so triggering. I'm just like on the road and I see this accident king thing and I'm like, and also people use that too with like insurance commercials. They'll like, you know, car insurance commercials. Like they will put like a literal accident. Like,
oh my god.
I'm like, oh my god, I'm just trying to watch.
Yeah, like State Farm, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like they'll literally have a simulated accident for the commercial.
Yeah, they don't think about like the PTSD for people that might like induce.
Exactly. And I see ads for like that for cancer too, like
medication.
Yeah, the medication. I see a lot of ads for medication. I don't know if it's just like the Peacock streaming service. I see it mostly on that. Don't know what that's about, but I'm just like, wow, this could be really triggering for people. You know, they're just trying to watch TV, and then all of a sudden there's ads about these certain types of cancers and, you know, how it can save your life. And,
oh my god.
And also I get mail at my house where it's like, oh, a screening could save your life. Like, get screened now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, remember when that mail came to my house? I was like, yeah, guys, a little too late for that.
Like, okay.
Anyways, there's just a million things that you cannot avoid that just trigger you in your day.
Yeah. Oh my god. Like, another hard one for me was like Snapchat memories and like Instagram memories. I had to delete Snapchat altogether because every like so often there would be a memory and it would be like a picture of me and my dad or like a video of him, and it was just like really hard to look at those or like go on Facebook and go down memory lane. God. You know?
I think I took like 6 months to even look at one photo. Like, I think I had a couple comfort photos that I had already seen, and then I never looked at a photo because, and then I finally was able to go on Facebook. But that was really hard, and I was like bawling and crying the whole time for hours, scrolling on the Facebook and looking at all these photos. But now, a year out, I'm able to like look at photos. I still cry when I'm seeking those out, but now I think it's more of like, I like to look at them because it brings all these things.
You have to be in the right headspace for sure. Like, you can't just have a random Snapchat memory pop up in your face. Like
exactly.
Here was 3 years ago. Like, you know.
No, the iPhone, like it has like when you swipe left and they choose a photo for you.
Yeah.
I don't have that because I guess I don't update my phone, but other people do.
I do.
And like my sister and my dad do, and I'm like, oh my god, how do you guys have that? And then it'll randomly be her. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, mine was recently like a picture of all 4 of my family members, like at Niagara Falls, and I was like, ooh, that was yeah, literally.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and also just like seeing other families, like complete families, it is a little triggering and like
unfortunate,
of course, like
Like, nothing, no hate to the family.
This is not to say, like, don't be in a family. Like,
no hate to your family or anything.
These are things that are uncontrollable, but like...
For sure. But it's like a little anger.
Oh, yeah. This is just like things that grievers experience.
Absolutely.
And like, I do not really want... I really don't want to, like... Okay, I shouldn't say that. I have a hard time being with other people's families when they have like their mom and their dad around, or like just like their whole family, because it's just a very heartbreaking to me.
For sure.
To come face to face with exactly what I don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm so happy for people when they have good relationships with, you know, their mom, but for me, like, it's so hard to like witness it because I'm just so sad that I don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I think that also goes into movies and TV shows that portray that too, and you're just like, damn.
Yeah.
Another one for sure was like graduation, because graduation, obviously your family comes out, or if people have their families come out to like celebrate the graduation, and I didn't graduate in May, but I was with my friend's family who graduated, and I went to the graduation dinner, and her dad and her dad's dad were both there.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, damn, like I'm fucking jealous.
Yeah, I always see people like with grandparent, like somebody's grandparent. Like, you still have your grandparents. That's crazy. That like, I don't know, I only have one still remaining grandmother. So like, that's a crazy concept to me, that you can be in college and your grandparents witness your college graduation. That's crazy, because my own mom didn't even get to witness my college graduation, but people's that's like, crazy.
Yeah, right? That is a crazy concept to grasp.
That's
like,
kind of a side note, but still.
Yeah. Also another one for me was Crying in H Mart, the book written by Michelle Zauner from Japanese Breakfast. You see, I really, really wanted to read the book, and I still do fully intend on reading it, but each page just hits so hard, to, like, so close to home for me. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, we're the same people or anything, but so many of her experiences mirror mine, and it is super triggering to read about it in a book that, you know, many people, it's like a trending book. It's like a New York Times bestseller for 29 weeks or something like that. And a lot of people are reading it, and it's like a really sad read, but for me, it's like, it is not, it's just not just a sad read.
People are reading it, quote unquote, for fun.
Yeah.
You know, and
at like a damn bookstore, like at a coffee shop.
Exactly. Of course it will, you know, pull at the heartstrings, because it is a sad, descriptive book. And I read the whole thing, and I cried numerous times, but I was able to finish it because I did relate to her on a lot of things about grief. But for you, it is like specific things that just bring up this whole spiral of emotions.
Exactly.
And how are you supposed to sit there and just read it? Like, no, it brings up too much stuff. And like, eventually with time and over time, you'll be able to read it and finish it. But like, to just sit in and have it for a fun little coffee shop read, or, you know, airport read, like, that's just not, it's like reading that book is like being in like psychotherapy. You're like bringing up all this stuff.
For sure. Yeah.
For you, yeah. So, and then there's like other things, just to finish off, like certain movies that they loved, or
certain artists
and music, certain songs that they liked. And I think I said this in a previous episode, but like, I couldn't listen to music at all, because all music, you know, is so emotional, and I couldn't, like, I just couldn't, I would cry at every single song, you know. But now I'm like able to listen to John Mayer, which is one of my mom's favorite artists, and
she had good taste.
Yeah, so like, love John Mayer, and I always have, but in the beginning I was not able to listen to him. I would literally skip over any song.
I mean, he has some really emotional fucking songs, like, we don't even have to explain. My dad loved Motown, and a lot of Motown plays on the heartstrings too, because it's like beautiful melodies and harmonies. A lot of acapella shit that like just is like soulful and like touches the, like it just hits all the right spots and makes you kind of like somber almost. And also it was playing at his funeral, so that was just
God,
I don't know. I mean, I like it, but it's definitely a bittersweet thing for sure. It's just like, yeah.
Another thing I just was reminded of was weddings. Like when I see people getting married on Instagram or whatever it is, like, and I see like all the little things that they got to do with their mom, and I'm like, just another triggering thing reminding me of something I'll never have.
Right.
And also Halloween, that's another thing. I remember during Halloween.
Yeah.
I was just like,
we literally became friends like right during Halloween too.
And for me, like, Halloween is just whatever, because like whatever, we don't trick or treat or dress up anymore because we're not in college. But like just Halloween overall, like everyone's kind of being in this death, spooky, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like you have these graves everywhere. Like you walk into the, dollar store.
It's a constant reminder. It's like skeletons, graves, zombies.
Like damn R.I.P.
R.I.P.'s everywhere.
R.I.P.'s everywhere. I'm like.
And then also the fucking Mexican Day of the Dead holiday that's also tied with Halloween.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to talk about after this, which was
or I guess it's
Day
not
of
tied
the Dead,
with
which is around the same time as Halloween. I mean, Day of the Dead really works to honor the dead, and it is more of a holiday that reunites the past loved ones with the people who are still here. And there's like a lot of rituals that go with it, and we were able to participate in that together last year. And as beautiful as it was, seeing everyone's shrine and setting up our own shrine and partaking in the community shrine in San Diego, of course it's just a triggering time because
it's not easy.
It's a heavy time.
But it also is one of those things, when it's done right, it really makes you feel like the whole community is like mourning with you too. Like we're all fucking doing this right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Day of the Dead feels, well, it is like a cultural, holiday. I hate to say it's a holiday, but it's a cultural experience. But Halloween is just like, I don't even know who the fuck made up Halloween. Like it's just trick or treating, right?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. Is there some?
I think there's some story probably, but
either way.
But as far as Halloween goes in America, it's like really not any. There's no spiritual meaning for it besides like getting candy and dressing up like a zombie.
Whereas Day of the Dead is like
there's a whole ritual, So that was really meaningful, and that was like one of our first hangouts was going to set up a shrine at the Day of the Dead community center.
We were like, oh, you want to go put up a shrine together?
Yeah, but it was honestly, it really was like one of those things that I felt so like thankful and grateful that I had a friend that was like able to do these things, like I was able to do these things with, and it was just like really a wholesome experience.
It really was.
Yeah, we really got to know each other really well throughout that whole night. Like that was like literally like maybe like the second time we ever hung out.
Love that Mexican cultural experience.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
But yeah, I think that's everything for triggers and grief-induced anxiety. There are a lot of things to be said about this topic, but this is just like obviously from our own experience. Not everybody has the same experience, so there's definitely different anxieties and different triggers for everybody. But I think the ultimate thing to be mindful of is that there are going to be, it's just a normal thing. It is. Don't gaslight yourself if you have anxiety, or if you think you're like being dramatic about certain things, you're probably not, and it's probably coming from a very rational place. And then also, if you're not someone who's grieving and you have friends that are, just be very mindful. Trigger warnings are always appreciated.
Love that.
And just be mindful, be kind. And I think that's the message of every podcast episode we have.
Be mindful of, things that might trigger your friend, and just like be kind and be thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
I think that's really it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.
Bye, guys.